believe that if you're not staying ambitious, you don't have any goals or anything that you're really going after, I believe that you're merely just existing. It's when you're ambitious about something, that's when you come alive. That's when you have passion. That's when you have hope. That's when you have purpose. You're driven, you're motivated, you have energy.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Lessons from Living. I am your host, Beth Graham. It is the power and purpose of Lessons from Living to motivate change through inspiration, all for God's glory. I feel like I say this every week, but this next interview is so special. Elijah Stacy is a young man who was diagnosed with a fatal disease when he was very young. He's now on a mission to shepherd the cure of that disease and at the same time share what it's like to live with passion and intention and mission that you may be inspired to live the same way. He's truly one of a kind, and it is my joy to introduce you to him now. Well, hello, Elijah. Welcome to Lessons from Living. We're so glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. In the interest of educating those like myself who have never heard of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, tell us about this challenge that you face.
Sure. So Duchenne muscular dystrophy, it's a muscle wasting disease. It's genetic. And what it does is it eats away a person's muscles as time goes on. So when I was a little kid, I was able to walk, but I would walk on my tippy toes. That's a really common sign. The reason that is because I was starting to lose muscle function. So my muscles are compensating for that, and so I can still have the function of walking. And so that's why I was walking on my tippy toes. So as you get older, you start to fall more frequently. You get more fatigued, everything like that. And then at age 11, that's when I lost my ability to walk completely, became dependent on a power wheelchair. And that's typical amongst boys with Duchenne to lose their ability to walk around, age 11, 12, around then. Then in your later teenage years, your arms get weaker because, those are muscles as well. So you lose mobility there. And then the disease is fatal, which is the worst part about it. And that's because the heart and diaphragm are muscles too. So the average lifespan of a person with Duchenne is 25. So it's a very, very terrible disease. I mean, the onset of it is when you're 5 and your lifespan is 25. You basically are born, not to be dramatic, but you're born suffering basically until you die. So, and it just gets harder and harder as time goes on.
Okay. And as you've described, it's progressive. Will you tell the story of how you found out about how the disease progresses when you
Yeah.
were 15? Is that right?
Yeah, I was 15 years old. So it was the summer of 2017. I was with my family. We were attending a fundraiser for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and it was put on by a group of high school dancers in a high school theater. And so, they would do their dances or whatever. But before the presentation began, they passed out these booklets that had a bunch of information in them. And I was just going through it, waiting for the show to start. So I was looking at it, it was just information about the dancers or whatever, but I got to the last page. The last page was full of information about Duchenne. It talked about how the disease is a muscle wasting disease and patients lose their ability to walk. And that wasn't news to me as I was sitting there in my wheelchair.
Right.
Then it said that patients lose mobility in their arms. And that really, hit me because I grew up on the football field under my dad, who was he was a head football coach. We throw the football around. I'm a big basketball fan, love to shoot baskets in my wheelchair, love to play catch with my friends. I'm very active with my arms. So that really shocked me. But then I kept reading and it got worse. It said that the disease is also fatal, 25. And I'm sitting there reading it at 15 and, I stopped breathing for a minute and I'm like,
Sure.
my whole blood's running. I'm getting really warm and I'm thinking, no, this is a mistake. But, logically it made me accept it because it's like, yeah, why wouldn't your heart and diaphragm, why wouldn't they be attacked too? Those are muscles. It makes sense. And then the booklet said that the disease is incurable. And the way I took that is they're saying that, it can't be cured. And I'm very used to people saying I can't do this or that. And then I go and do exactly that. So I thought, okay, well, let's see what I can do. And, around this time, I was also getting super interested in business, studying, business icons like Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett. these people that I look up to in the business world. Started reading business books, reading all kinds of stuff because marketing stuff. The stuff was fascinating to me, and so I wanted to do something great for the world. And I thought, I don't know what it is, but in that moment, I realized, you know what? Why don't I do something about it? Let's see what I can do. You say it can't be done. Let's see what I can do about it. And so that was the beginning of my journey.
You're doing relatively well now, right? You still have some use of your arms?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
My heart and
So
diaphragm are good. So
good, good, good. So we're going to assume that you're in that top range of lifespan. I've heard you say that there are people in their 40s who are living with this disease, and we're going to assume that's you because you have a lot to accomplish, you know? So
right,
we need you around. And hopefully by then, surely a cure will be worked out, correct?
100%. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to add to this. There's actually the oldest patient to ever live with Duchenne was 58, and that's a long
Wow.
time, right? And then there's other patients that are 55, 54, but these are abnormal. I mean, these are the very abnormal cases, but it shows that it's possible. But I mean, there's a man right now that I came across who he's I believe he's 33. He has a wife and a kid and one on the way, according to the article that I read.
Wow.
So beautiful, beautiful story there. And so, yeah, we don't really know when our time is up until God decides to take us. That's what I
Right.
believe. So, yeah.
Right. Well, that's awesome. That's very hopeful. I want to talk more about the cure in a little bit, but let's talk about your family. You have an older brother who is healthy. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, so I have an older brother, Will. He's healthy. He just got married. Then there's me. I'm
Wow.
the second oldest, and then the third in line would be Max. He had a lot of problems. In addition to having Duchenne, from when he was born, he had a failed heart surgery that led to a massive stroke. So he was confined to his bed. He was blind, cognitively delayed, needed a feeding tube, full time nurse. Went to the hospital several times a year, and he unfortunately passed away when he was 14 in 2019. So that's Max, and then my youngest brother Kai, he's 14 and he has Duchenne. He's in a power wheelchair as well.
Okay. I'm very sorry for your loss. Um, it's hard to wrap my mind around how you've been able to cope with all of this, but I can't imagine how your parents have survived what they've gone through. They must be extraordinary parents.
They are. I've been very fortunate to have two amazing parents who have built me to become the person I am today. So I definitely don't take that for granted, and I truly do know the significance of having good parents. So
Mhm. Well, you deserve that. Tell us about your why. Can you talk about that some?
right, right. So author Simon Sinek, he has this concept of why. Why do you do what you do? It's got to be more than money, but like some type of bigger cause. And so, when I was 15, I went down and I figured out, what is my why? I wanted to figure it out. And my why is this: it's to minimize human suffering and propel human prosperity so that humanity can have a better quality of life. That's what my why is. And so, what does this mean, though? What does this look like? Well, to minimize human suffering, that looks like curing genetic diseases, right? I'm not just interested in curing Duchenne, but I'm interested in curing all genetic diseases. I'm interested in improving people's lives in that aspect. I think that sickness is one of the great things that weighs us down. I want to get to the point. I have this great vision where one day, the doctor doesn't have to tell a little girl with cancer bad news, but the doctor can go in there and tell her that the good news that she has been healed. That's
Mhm.
that's what I want to get to. That's the future I want to build. That's the future that I'm excited about. So that's to minimize human suffering. The other aspect of though is to propel human prosperity. So what's that look like? That looks like things like educating people on philosophies or things that can improve their life. That looks like giving them the mindsets. It looks like motivating them, inspiring them to go and try and become their ultimate version. And when I do these two things, what it does is it leads to humanity having a better quality of life. That's the type of world I want to create. And so that would be my why.
Okay, that's a super huge, inspiring why. I love it. It's supersized. I love it. um, I think you've accomplished at least the second half of that in writing your book. It's called A Small If, the inspiring story of a 17-year-old with a fatal disease and a mission to cure it. I'd like to dig into that a little bit, if that's okay with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah. But before I do that, I've heard you say that you're interested in working for a biotech company. Is that something you're going to be doing soon?
So I actually do work for a biotech at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Well,
I
that's excellent.
I
So
do.
you're working on the first half of your why in that regard, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's many things I do for the first half of the why. Between the nonprofit
Mhm.
and the biotech. Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I have plans to do even more on that first half. I'm fascinated with the field of medicine, not just medicine, but well, I guess it is more medicine, but uh, regenerative medicine, robotics that can help people with disabilities or
Mhm.
those that might have physical limitations. I just want to make people's lives a life of less suffering. I want to make their life more enjoyable, so they can go do things that I think really matter, like serve other people and spend time with people that they care about. I think
Right.
that's what I want to do. So that's the first half, but yeah, the second half is the book. So we can go into
Okay.
that. Yep.
Awesome. Sure. So you have 13 lessons that you kind of interwoven throughout your story. So I thought we would just touch on some of those. The first one is defeating the odds. What is your protocol for when you find yourself facing adversity?
Yeah. So I mean, when you face adversity, one of the things that you have to do is you have to find like if you're gonna do something that's super hard to overcome, maybe it even seems very improbable. What you have to do is you have to find how it is possible, right? You have to know that it is possible. If you think that it's truly impossible, you're done. I mean, you have to find the possibility. Once you find the possibility, come up with a plan and work hard, and then visualize yourself really accomplishing that thing. See yourself doing it because uh, there's a lot of power in visualizing, and it's not this weird woo woo thing. It's simple, just psychology of when you visualize yourself, it trains your nervous system to see that all the stuff they're gonna have to go through and paints the picture of the path that you have to go down in order to get to your destination. So I'm a real big believer in that. And so like you take my spine story, from the book, and I did a lot of visualizing. I visualized myself celebrating and how good it would feel pulling this off. I visualized myself um, all the hard work that was needed as well, so that I would expect, the hardship that I was going to face in order to get this done. And that's what I did. And that's a huge part of the success of accomplishing that.
Okay. You talk about staying ambitious. And you commented that in today's world, so many people are super lazy and don't want to do anything. I see this particularly in a lot of young people. I'm hoping that once you nail down the cure for DMD, that you'll write another book that really challenges young people, particularly because um, I just don't see a lot of them that are super ambitious like you are. What does being ambitious mean to you, Elijah?
Yeah, I love this question. So, stay ambitious. It's my life's motto at this point, and it's a lot deeper than what it looks like on the surface. I believe that if you're not staying ambitious, you don't have any goals or anything that you're really going after. I believe that you're merely just existing. It's when you're ambitious about something that's when you come alive. That's when you have passion. That's when you have hope. That's when you have purpose. You're driven. You're motivated. You have energy. When you're just there, no goals, nothing. You're just there, and life seems kind
Mhm.
of mundane and repetitive, and you're not really progressing anywhere. And that's not what life's about. That's not what we're created to do. We're created to go after things, to have there's a plan for our life. So I think that you need to stay ambitious, and it's even good if you're winning at life. If you're accomplishing your goals, don't get too satisfied with the wins, but keep going after something else. Constantly stay ambitious, and that's what that means.
Okay. You say that you always try to maximize every day. I was diagnosed with cancer about 5 years ago, and going through something like that certainly does provide a ready-made motivation for you. You know, I've had people say, "Why are you trying to do all these things that you're trying to do?" But I just like you, I really don't take any day for granted after having been through that experience. I see that in you. You know, you've lived very intentionally. I think you've probably accomplished more in 20 years than most people do in a lifetime, you know? And so for people that don't have a whole lot of motivation, and again, I fully acknowledge that we probably are in a different boat because we're a kind of on a clock in a way, and that is motivation, very motivating. But
Mhm.
for people, someone who doesn't have that kind of impetus pushing them and they're just unmotivated, they want to watch Netflix all day instead of really striving toward a goal. What would you say to someone like that?
Well, I would probably ask them a lot of questions, like why do you think this is the best use of your time? And I would go down my like philosophical model that I created, which is like if you look at the laws of supply and demand, it helps explain the value of your time. What I mean by that is your time is something that is in high demand. You want time. You want to live forever, right? Eternity is written on our hearts, right? Okay, so you want to live forever, so your time is in demand. But we know that you're not going to live forever, no matter who you are. You're going to die one day. And a lot of people don't want to talk about death and stuff like that. But no, it's good to be mindful of it. It's good to realize and to recognize, yeah, I my time is limited. It's not going to be here forever. So when something's scarce and it's in high demand, it's very valuable. And so when you recognize, okay, my time is very valuable, then you think about spending it in different ways, and and that's how I am. No matter if I live till I'm 80 or if I live till tomorrow, I want to use every day um, in a meaningful way. Whether that's helping a friend overcome anxiety or the problems they have in their life, to writing a book that inspires tons and tons of people. Um, Whatever it may be, I want to do stuff that makes well, it accomplishes my why. It makes people's lives better.
Yeah, well said. The other piece of staying ambitious to me is setting a high standard, um, kind of seeking personal excellence. And again, I see a lot of people who just want to do the bare minimum. They just want to get by. You've said, I don't see the point in life of trying to just be average. Why is setting a higher standard for yourself important, do you think?
That's a really good question. I think that, average, you're not really living out your full potential. And it's like, why wouldn't you want to have your full potential actualized, right? What's the point of just being kind of okay? I personally believe that when people really push themselves to higher levels, they feel better about themselves. They're more satisfied
Mhm.
with life. They're more fulfilled because I mean, if we're going to talk philosophy, I think it's because you're living out the plan that God has for your life. If you are supposed to be this person, but you're falling short of it, you're not going to be totally fulfilled because you're not really fully living out the plan that God has for your life. So I think it really comes back to that. Um, and I don't think average should be people's goals. I think they should aim bigger. Aim bigger and bigger and bigger, and you'll just
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of what you're talking about involves self sacrifice. Your why is hugely self sacrificing, and that is one of your lessons. You have more than many people, so many built in excuses for just taking care of yourself, you know? But you're doing the exact opposite. What motivates you to put others before yourself, do you think?
It's just a more satisfying life, to be honest with you. I find serving people to be great. I mean, I know I keep bringing this back to God, but one of my greatest role models, no, actually, my greatest role model is Jesus, and he said greatness is serving others, and so I think that serving others, I don't know, I get just great fulfillment from it, and like yeah, again, I can learn from Jesus of sacrificing yourself for other people.
Mhm.
You know, there's something great about it, right? He says that there's no greater love than to lay down your life for one's friends. So, we can kind of see that example of when we do things for other people, it just shows that we really do love them, that we really do care about them. And so, I don't know. I just find I find so much joy in serving other people and helping people. I'm definitely a people person. So
Talk a little bit about the connect the dots later that you have as one of your lessons.
yeah. So connect the dots later. It's from Steve. It's a quote built on what Steve Jobs once said, which is so true. Um, he said that, and I'll paraphrase. He basically said that you can't connect the dots looking forward, but you can only connect them looking backwards. Meaning, sometimes things make no sense, but in retrospect, it all makes sense. Why this happened and this, that happened and everything like that. So, you know, uh, why did you meet this person 5 years ago? It might not make any sense, but then, now it makes sense because that person turns out to be your husband or wife, I don't know, something like that. Uh,
Mhm.
why did you get fired from your job? It seems so tragic and terrible, but it led to you getting a better job. So in the moment, it made no sense, but in the future, it makes sense. And really, the great thing about this lesson is when things aren't making sense, this lesson says to have faith that it will make sense one day, that it's all being worked out. And when you look at your past, you could see, okay, yeah, there was things in my past that didn't make sense at the time, but then in the future, it did turn out to make sense. And so when you look at it like that, you say, okay, it happened in the past, it's going to happen again. Right now I'm in another moment where things aren't making sense, but I know it will make sense one day, just like all the other things in my past. And so that's the lesson of connect the dots of later.
Okay. That's interesting that that's from Steve Jobs because I really think I see this as being a faith thing, um, trusting,
Sure.
trying to trust that there's a big picture that we're not privy to. We may never be, So that is the way you describe it.
Yeah, it's that's actually brilliant. I mean, it reminds me of Proverbs, right, where God, it says that God, he directs your steps. He's making your paths straight. And so you're right. He's the one that's organizing it all together.
You talk about adapting. Give some examples of how you've had to adapt because of the adversity that you faced. I know you have a lot of them that you could
Yeah.
tell us about. It's kind of a whole process of adaptation, isn't it?
Right, right. I mean, from everything from getting out into my bed, climbing into my wheelchair to using the bathroom, shower, basically everything. Um,
Mm.
so what I've developed is a trick to use gravity. Um, so my wheelchair is a certain height. It's a little bit higher than my bed. That's great. I am higher than my bed, so I can easily climb into it and kind of fall down because I'm starting at a higher point, so I could just kind of fall down to get in my bed to go to sleep. Okay, now I need to get into my chair. Now my chair is higher than my bed, but I have a hospital bed, so the feet part of it raises up. I hardly ever use it except when I'm going to get out of bed because then I can sit on it, raise it up, so now I'm higher than my chair, slide into the chair. I did the same concept with everything in my bathroom. I told my parents, when we were redressing, I said, let me design this. They said, oh, I don't know. So no, let me design it. And they thank me every day for letting me design it. I've I made the toilet seat higher, fairly simple. I just made it higher than my chair, just a little bit. And so my chair, what's great about my chair is it could raise up to be a higher height. So then I can make myself higher than the toilet, flip over to the toilet, and then vice versa. And what did I do with the shower? Put a bench that's built into the shower, made it higher than my chair. Did the same thing there as well. So that's a great way to adapt. But it really starts with the adapter's mindset of being able to think creatively and be willing to adapt. You think that okay, there's going to be some obstacles and I have to adapt, and sometimes what I say is adapting to sometimes swallowing your pride and asking for help. Being willing to let other people help you. That is sometimes the way to adapt to the obstacle, to the adversity that you're facing.
Okay. I saw this with you too in sports, how you went from being in a wheelchair, you wanted to play some kind of sports. Now you're going to have to fix my story here, but because I won't tell it well. But then you learned how to play basketball in your chair, correct?
Hmm.
And use the strength of your arms when you didn't have strength in your legs.
Right, right. So, at recess time in elementary school, all my friends, were huge basketball fans. We played basketball, and so I was in a wheelchair. And the way it started off is, I was picked last. No kid wanted me on their team. Oh, he's the guy in the wheelchair, whatever. And they would go easy on me, and I hated that. So I thought, you know what, okay, fine. So I just started to play as hard as I could, and then eventually it became the point where the people were complaining that, oh, it's not fair that you have him on your team because, this and that. I started to use my disadvantage to my advantage. Like, what I mean by that is, when you're dribbling the basketball, if you're lower to the ground, which I am, it's so much easier to steal it from them. So I'd always steal it from, the opponent, or, setting a screen, kind of setting like a wall so like your teammates can dribble around you and get the guard off of you. I would do that because it's this big bulky wheelchair, so I'd use it to my advantage. Use your disadvantage to your advantage. That's a huge lesson I learned from that. But taught myself how to dribble, how to shoot. All in my wheelchair, and yeah, we loved playing basketball. It was super super fun, and it's one way I definitely adapted.
It seems like a lot of people are just they're not resilient. Something bad happens and they just want to curl up in a ball and give up functioning, and I see this with parents too who try to keep their kids from adversity. And I don't think it does them any favors, because then when they're out on their own and they're faced with their first challenge, they can't cope a lot of times. Have you seen that too? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I totally know what you're talking about. I actually taught on this yesterday. I think that when you're not faced with adversity, it does you a great disadvantage in life. I think that the lack of responsibility or a lack of adversity leads to a purposeless, meaningless life. Not that you don't have meaning or purpose, but it's a lot harder to find when things are so
Mhm.
easy and given to you. And, especially in America, we live in one of the most wealthy nations in the world. A lot of people don't have real adversity here. And so when they are faced with real adversity, it shocks their world like no other because they haven't had that adversity, or I should say, resilience muscle be trained. It got
Mhm.
really weak.
Mhm.
It almost doesn't even exist sometimes. But you take somebody that is battling cancer or has Duchenne or has hardship in life, they're going to be so much more equipped to face the adversity they're facing in life, and it's not going to be as hard for them to overcome it.
Mhm. I agree. You talk a lot about self-image. Why is self-image important, do you think?
Oh, it's so important. So, so important. How you see yourself relates to how you're going to act. And how you act is how other people are going to see you. So, if you see yourself as somebody that's not confident, you're not going to act confidently because you don't think of yourself as a confident person. It really does matter. I mean, our beliefs are so important. One only has to look at the placebo effect to really understand this. Scientists literally have to check or test with a controlled group, two groups, let's say group A and group B. They have to test whether the pill that they're giving somebody is really doing them good because of the medication, or if it's just the belief of the patient. For
Mhm.
example, we've seen patients where doctors basically give them a sugar pill and they tell the patient this is going to stop your knee pain. The patient's facing a lot of knee pain. So here's a sugar pill. It's going to stop your knee pain. The patient takes it and they believe that's the key. They believe that the sugar pill is going to make their knee pain go away, and they take it and they go, oh. I feel so much better now. I have no more knee pain, all because of the belief. That's insane to me. That is so wild to me that that's a thing. And so it really shows you that beliefs do matter. Um, and that's why I'm real big on it because as a person that's in a wheelchair, a lot of times you can fall into believing that, oh, I'm just this disabled person and that's my identity, that's my life, and I reject that 100%. I believe that you're so much more than a disabled person. I mean, that's just when somebody talks to me, they say, Elijah, who are you? I say, I'm an author, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a person that likes to invest. I'm a person that likes to learn. I'm a person that likes to talk philosophy. I'm a sportsman. That's who I am. And then I would, if we want to talk about the wheelchair, I'd say, who happens to have a disability, right? Who happens to have a disability? It's like, I don't know. To me, it's really as simple as you're a sports fan who happens to wear glasses, or who happens to be blonde, or happens to be, 6'2". Like, it's just a part of me. It's not my identity, and I think that that's a huge message that I want to convey to people, whether they have a disability or not, because a lot of people struggle with how they see themselves. A lot of people think that they're not attractive, or they think that they're not smart, or whatever, and it leads to those things being true. It's a self-actualizing prophecy. And so I'm real passionate, real big on the self-image because it's a huge part of who I am. In fact, I'll tell you a mini story about it. I was at a restaurant with my family, and me and the waiter were getting along real well. We were talking basketball the whole night, and before I left, he said, hey, I just have to ask you this. I'm sorry if it's offensive or anything like that, but I have to ask you, why are you in a wheelchair? Because it seems to me as if the restaurant ran out of chairs and that wheelchair was just there in front of the table and you happen to take a seat in it. You don't act like you're in a wheelchair. And so, I told him everything, but that is the perfect way to explain me. It's like, yeah, I just happened to take a seat in the wheelchair because it was the chair available.
Right. That's a great story. So you talk about how beliefs should be grounded in reality, but then I've also heard you say you can be a little delusional. when that explain what the difference is and why you said that.
Yeah. It might sound like a contradiction, but it's within a narrow parameter. So what I mean by that is, like, when you're working on your self image, if you wanna improve it or change it, you have to ground it in reality, as your proof, so that you'll really believe it, and then it'll start to sink, within your subconscious, and you'll really accept it. Um, So that's what I mean by that. Like, for example, let's say you want to be a more confident person. Well, think back to a time when you acted confidently. Maybe it was raising your hand in the classroom. That's an act of courage. It's a small proof, but you could take that proof and you could just build on it and build from that. So that's where it's grounded in reality. That's the one small real event that you have done. But then when I talk about be delusional, have big dreams, have things that are out there and work towards them. That's what I mean by that. Be super optimistic. There's no need to live in reality. Think that you're more confident than you are. Let it go crazy, and it's just going to lead to good things because these are good, desired characteristics that you're trying to get. So that's what I mean by the two, and why it matters within particular parameters.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk about the dichotomy of control a little bit. You quote Epictetus, we must make the best of those things that are in our power and take the rest as nature gives it. You make the point, which I had not really given ever any thought to, about the fact that few things are within our control and most things are not. I usually just worry about everything indiscriminately, and, and that was an interesting thought that I need to be making distinctions there, correct? Uh, what is talk about that a little bit and talk about the question to ask yourself when you're thinking about these things.
Sure. So that economy of control, this I gotta credit the Stoics for this, the ancient Stoics, right? Um, but what it means is, you gotta focus on what you can control and disregard what you cannot control. And the key to the lesson, though, is, if you tell somebody that and they say, "Oh yeah, that's so true, amen," right? They're all big, but no, you really want to get the benefits of this lesson, you must recognize that a lot of things are not in your control, and then you might ask yourself, well, what does it even mean to be in control? But what it means to be in control is that you get to control the outcome of the event that you're pursuing. Uh, for example, things that are not in your control. People liking you. You could be respectful, you could be nice to them, you could take an interest in them, but they may not like you just because they don't like anybody. They choose not to like you. So that's outside your control. So you don't worry about it. You just do your best, but you don't worry about it. And that removes a lot of anxiety and stress, off of you. So that's what it means. So a lot of times it's good to ask yourself the question, is this something in my control? Yes or no? And if it's not, then don't worry about it, right? And I would say to people of faith, like, you could even kind of um, think about this in terms of the scriptures. It says to cast our anxieties onto Him. Cast our anxieties to Jesus, give it to Him. And so it's like, is this something that I'm not in control of? No. But can God intervene on this? Yes, He can. And so, you give it to God. And I see that as something that makes life a lot easier, a lot more simple to live.
You use what you call the extreme example of death, fear of death. Explain why you think, and this is all part of the control thing, I know, but why we should not fear death.
Yeah, we can't control it. Um,
Yes.
so it's something not to worry about. This lesson of control and not control. It's like if it's something you can't control, you're human. You are going to cross your mind on it, but you got to train yourself to start thinking about something else. Don't meditate on the things you can't control, but go meditate on the things you can control. So shift your focus. But when it comes to death, it's like I think that if you fear it, learn to accept that it's something that's going to happen, right? Because I said that there's an importance to keep death on your mind, right? It makes your time valuable. But yeah, it's inevitable, it's going to happen. But I think that people that are worried about death and stuff like that, what I would say is, really go on a search for truth. Ask yourself the big questions. Why are we here to begin with? Why is there something rather than nothing? What makes you morally good or bad? Why, is there a God or not? Who was Jesus? Like, ask these big questions. Because when it's all said and done, what's going to matter? You're going to want to know. But when I was 15 and I heard about the disease, that I really, really searched even harder for truth. And when you're confident in your beliefs, you know, you don't worry about death as much because you know where you're going to go when it's all said and done. And so that removes it. So I don't worry about it anymore. If it's my time, it's my time. And if it's not my time, great. Let's keep on going. To live as Christ, to die as gain.
Well said. You talk about gratitude. We're hearing a lot about gratitude around here lately, which I love because I'm a big proponent. How can practicing gratitude be helpful?
Well, I trained you to, to be well, when you practice it, you become a more grateful person in general. And that's a good thing. And I would also say too, when you're in a state of gratitude, you're truly not able to be anxious simultaneously. It's not possible. You're not able to be depressed simultaneously. Um, and that's a good thing. It's like the antidote to those problems. But being grateful, it makes you value the things more that you might take for granted. It could be something like, are you really grateful for your house? A lot of people probably aren't. Like they probably aren't. But if you really go down some exercises that I outline in the book, like visualize yourself not having a house in this particular example. And really, what would that feel like? What would it be like? How would it make your life hard? When you really be graphic in your detail in the visualization, you would start to be more grateful for it. Or take a cell phone, for example. I say people should take their phone and go lock it away in a drawer and don't use it for a day, and you'll be more grateful and appreciative of your phone. Um, it's just stuff like that, and it's just super valuable because it makes you happier. It's one of the keys to
Mhm.
being a more happy, joyful person.
Yeah. I like that you point out that it has to be legitimate though. You can't be just spewing out a couple things that you're grateful for. You really have to feel it. I've never really heard that before, and I like that you added that.
Right, right. Because a lot of people they talk about this, but they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm great. I'm grateful for water." And are you really though? Like, do you really believe that? Because like, I don't believe you. A truly grateful person. This comes from the lesson where I broke my leg and I was in deep need and deep pain, and the paramedics came and helped me into my bed, and then they gave me morphine. That's a true state of gratitude where it's like these people are helping me and I need them, and I don't know what I would have done or the how I would have overcame the pain without them there. That's true. That's true gratitude.
You talk about being a leader to someone. You say we need more people to create their own trends instead of following others. This is something I really love about you because you are a really creative thinker, I think. I've heard you say, I've been realizing lately that I have goals that are not normal. Well, being normal is kind of overrated, I think, don't
100%.
you?
100%. Totally overrated.
So speak to this. You can be a leader in a lot of different ways, can't you?
Yes, you can. And that lesson is like, when we think of leaders, we think of, oh, the presidents or leaders of a nation, the CEOs, whatever. But no, I'm saying that you're really a leader to somebody. You're leading somebody somewhere, um, whether that's a sibling of yours, whether that's a friend of yours. You're probably leading somebody and you just don't know it. For me, I recognize I was literally born into being a leader for my brother Kai since he has Duchenne. So I'm leading him, down this path of Duchenne and teaching him everything I know and how to overcome it. So it makes his life less suffering, for him to go down this disease. And yeah, you're a leader to somebody and recognize that. And the great thing about this lesson is that when you're a leader, it makes you have responsibility, it makes you accountable. You have to hold yourself to a higher standard of living. And as I said, right, lack of responsibility or adversity leads to a meaningless, purposeless life. You want more responsibility, and you should not be upset about possible adversity you may face. And so, yeah, I'm real big on that.
Okay. How about those people who don't want to take responsibility? They would prefer finding something or someone to blame instead of themselves.
Well, yeah, what I would say to them is, I don't see you think you want that, but you really don't. You think you don't want to take responsibility, but that's not true. The reason it's not true is because when you're a victim, right? When you say this is not my fault, and we look at this precisely. What you're saying is I don't have the power. It's not in my control to change this event. Do you want to not be able to change the event? Do you not want the power? You don't want to be in control of something? I never want to be a victim because I'll be honest, I want control. I want to be able to solve the issue. And so a true victim, you don't really want to be a true victim. And so this whole lack of accountability and not take responsibility, it's nothing that you want. You want to be able to have the control, to have the power to fix things.
Okay. And your final lesson is prioritize your character. This seems kind of old fashioned, Elijah. Does anyone really care about character anymore?
They should. They totally should. It's
Speak about why that's important.
yeah, I mean, your character is good under all circumstances, right? If you're really rich, you need good character to take care of the money to use it right. If you're really poor, you need good character to endure all the economic hardship you're going to face. Life's going to be harder. If you're healthy, you need the good character to be grateful for your good health and to take good care of it and to keep it, right? Right. And if you're not healthy, you need the good character to persevere and overcome that adversity of not having the good health. So character is good under all circumstances of life. And it's something that is achievable for everybody. Not everyone can be a billionaire, right? Some people, oh, I want to be a billionaire. Okay. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody can be an amazing pro athlete. They just don't have the genetics to do so. But everybody is capable of living a life of good character. And so it's attainable for everybody. And it's really the most important thing. It's what matters under any circumstance. And the thing about it is like in order to improve your character, you do that by facing adversity, by facing hardships. It lets you exercise the virtues, which is character is just the sum total of virtue. And so adversity makes people, and I notice this, people that have gone through a lot of adversity seem to have really good character. That's something that I observed in my young life. And
Hmm.
and I think I think my philosophy is kind of being proven to be correct. That yeah, adversity strengthens it. And so yeah, that's why I'm real big on character, because everybody can achieve it. And you know what else too is it makes you live a more fulfilled life. Living, doing morally good things makes you more fulfilled, more satisfied with life. Uh, and doing things that are wrong, it leads to guilt, it leads to shame, and these things bring you down. You don't really want those things. Um, and so yeah, that's why I talk about the importance of prioritizing your character.
Hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for walking us through some of those. I appreciate that. Let's talk about the cure. Why do you think we're close to a cure?
Yeah, when we look at Duchenne, it's a genetic disease. We look at things like gene editing, like CRISPR. We look at gene therapy. There's a difference between the two. These things are being progressed very fast, and the fact that we even know how to change the DNA now, we've done this with mice, we've done this with dogs, we've done this in uh, patients with DMD in their hearts outside the body. That's the key, outside the body. And it's worked though. That's the thing. It's worked. And the fact that we were able to do it, that we have the knowledge on how to do it, is a good sign. The problem now that we're facing, the only thing that's stopping us is being able to deliver this technology inside a patient. All right, so they call it in vivo. We don't know, we're not confident to do it safely and effectively yet. And that's the problem that we need to overcome. But I'm confident that we'll be able to do that. Medicine is we're entering the golden age of medicine. We're progressing medicine all the time now, and it's very exciting stuff. And so it's just a matter of time, a matter of resources, a matter of effort and passion to get this done.
Okay, who's working on it right now?
All types of people. I mean, there's scientists across the board working on this, because it's not just Duchenne, but it's all these other genetic diseases. But there's there's big pharmaceutical companies buying up smaller companies now to hire these scientists and hire their labs to make it, because and that's good. We want big money. We want big money here because money solves problems.
Uh-huh. Sure. So you mentioned several of those things. Do you think it's more of a money issue or a time issue?
Both. The reason I say
Okay.
both is because money allows us to do more research,
Mhm.
hire the best people, allows you to do more things. But unfortunately, it does just come down to time. What? Well, why is that? Well, because we have to test and we have to see the effects of it over a certain period of time, and it's literally just a function of time. There's nothing we could do to speed it up. We need to know that this is safe, so it takes time. For example, it takes time to uh, to observe the mice, over a span of 2 years, um,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So yeah.
The audience can help by funding this, right? Are there other ways that they can help?
Well, I would say, reading my book,
Mhm.
following me on social media, just getting more familiar with what I'm trying to do and getting the message out there more, because, and I'm real big on this because one, it makes the Shin more known, it makes the research more known. But
Mm.
two, I want to get this message that I have of just serving other people, overcoming adversity, taking responsibility, prioritizing your character, improving your self image, being more grateful. Like I want to get my philosophies out there because it all comes back to I think it's going to help people, and I really
Mhm.
do believe it, and I know it's helped people. I've talked to people who've put this into action and it's worked, and so yeah, it's something to get
Sure.
my message out there more.
Okay. Okay. And this is just a fun question. I know you love books and reading. If you had to pick a top 3 or 4 books that you've read, what would they be?
Is it cheating if I say the Bible?
No,
The Bible
that's a
for
good one, Elijah.
the Bible for certain. Um, I read all the different types of books. I in the finance world, I really enjoyed Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think that's a really really good book. I think um, it's hard to say like the top books. You know what I mean? I'm real big on reading biographies. Like I said, I look up to
Okay.
Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett. Reading their biographies are really really uh, useful and interesting to me. Um, so yeah, I'd say those books that I listed.
You know, when I first asked you to come on the show, I wasn't sure whether you were a believer. And it was interesting because just in our communication together, you were so compassionate and so gracious when my mom passed away and we had to reschedule. And I thought, I would be surprised just by virtue of the way that you treat people. I would be surprised if you weren't a believer. And um, so it's very consistent, I think, with your character and the way that you act. And then I saw this quote. You were talking about your greatest role model, and your quote, "My greatest role model had his arms pinned down as well." That's one that I think I will put on my bulletin board to remind me to pray for you. But I love that
Right.
Christ did teach us to suffer well, for sure. Share how your faith has impacted how you live.
Well, that's there's a lot to it. Well, like I said, when it comes to death, I'm very very big believer in God. And really, the reason I believe in God is I'm a philosophical guy. I like the apologetics route of looking at the reasons for God's existence and the scientific evidence, the reasoning behind it. So uh, that's impacted me because I have a very sincere belief of God. I believe God really is real. I think a lot of people today they say they believe in God, and I really hope they do, but they don't act like it. I don't know if they're really convinced, and so I try to show them things that would increase their faith. But I guess back to me, I say this because death, right? I seriously do not fear death. I want to live. I definitely want to live, but I don't fear dying. And a lot of people really think I'm crazy when I say that. They look at me differently because I truly mean what I when I say that. Like I don't fear death, and some of the things I do, people are like, "Yeah, you really don't fear death, huh?" And no, I do not. Um, so there's that, but living the teachings of serving other people, loving your neighbor as you love yourself, how I think about certain things, having a prayer life, uh, how I go about my life. Um, it really comes back to the Bible. Like I see all like something that is uncommon is I see the purpose of my suffering. I see that being in a wheelchair allows more attention to be on me, and so I get to live my life as Christ and model Him more. So because of the wheelchair, I see that my suffering can impact people. Um, you know, because it's visible that I'm suffering. I can impact them and show them how Christ has a purpose for it. I could show them how, I could relate to Christ more because he suffered with us and for us. Um, there's just so much that I can go on and on about how it's impacted me, but it's really deep stuff and it really is the answer to people's problems, I believe.
I could talk to you for another hour, I think. I think what we should do is have you come back. And maybe I'm thinking, maybe 6 months, a year, check in on you, see how things are doing. Would you, be willing to do
Oh,
that?
I would love to do it. You've been one of the
Okay.
nicest hosts I've ever been a podcast on. So,
Oh my gosh, you're kind. I just really enjoy talking with you. I want to stay in touch for sure. I'm going to list all of your contact information in our show notes, and I have all of the Destroy Deshen information on there as well. So If a listener wants to make a donation, they're able to do that right through your site, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And is there anything else you would like to add to that? I know we can put your book on there. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I have my personal website people can visit. It's elijahjstacy.com. And that's
Okay.
just more like personal to me, like what, about me as a person and everything.
We really need you in this world, Elijah. So I think I can speak for my audience in saying that we are going to pray for you and pull for you and a cure. And I just want to thank you for the gift of your presence today. It's been really fun getting to know you, and I look forward to getting to know you a lot better. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and just thank you for your, um, just like how positive you are and how nice you are. I do appreciate it. So thank you.
My heart is full. I am so grateful to Elijah. He really does want to come back to share more with us, and he said he might be able to get his parents on for a conversation as well. I do have some questions for those two walking, breathing saints. If you feel compelled to contribute to the Duchenne cure, we will have all of the information listed in the show notes. I know you'll want to share this episode with someone. Please do. You may also rate and review the podcast on iTunes and push the subscribe button. I know I sound like a broken record, but those are 3 things that can really make a difference in the life of the show. And as always, I am so grateful for you. Today, may you be inspired and inspiring to others. Go out and make it a great day.